guys, welcome to Bachelor. My name is Joker with a face for radio and a voice for print. I've been very busy on my building, and you know what? The web is getting so crazy. All these stories out there in the news and everything else is getting so wild that I just was like, I need a couple weeks away from the internet. What really pushed me to just turn off and dive out was watching an animal rights activist group steal a homeless man's puppy. Because they didn't want the puppy to live on the street. They were okay with the man living on the street, but not that man having that puppy because they were afraid the puppy wasn't going to get fed. And so they took it off and gave it to an adoption thing. And finally, because of public outcry, the poor man was screaming like, "That's all I have." And it was a little tiny puppy, and it broke my heart. And what was really interesting is everybody was way more concerned with the puppy and if it was going to be okay and how it was being treated and the fact that it was taken from the man. But the whole thing, no one ever said, hey, you know what? Let's be concerned with a homeless man on the street. and if it hadn't gone viral on the internet, I don't think anyone would have noticed. And it broke my heart because this is where we are now, where people think they're doing the right things. People think they're the saviors and they're virtue signaling, and everybody's doing the right thing for society and everything else. And in the meantime, they're destroying it over narcissism and being selfish. And they're trying to lie their way out of what reality is right now. It's almost like it's a shell game where reality is underneath this, shell, and they keep sliding it around and moving it. And they're trying to distract you with other things. They try to come out with a big story about some nonsense when something else is. It's like a magician. If you know anything about magicians, they'll wiggle and jiggle something that's bright and fancy and do a lot of distraction stuff. And in the real time, the magic's really happening over here off to the side. It's called distraction. Well, that's everything that's going on right now. I chose this photo here because what's going on in France, the news is not reporting. Mainstream news isn't. If you go to look on most MSNBC, CBS, NBC, ABC, the BBC. Like, no one's really talking about what's going on in France, and it's under absolute collapse right now. Because they don't want you to know what's going on, because then you're going to have a tough conversation. And God forbid you simple-minded idiots out there have to think for yourselves and maybe look at all the facts and have a discussion about it. And that's how they're doing it with everything. But it's not just the left side; it's also the right side. Conservatives, traditional tradcons. Both sides. One side says, "Oh, marriage doesn't work, and we'll have this plurality of people hooking up with each other in a house. So you got 3 dudes sleeping with 5 women, and they all live in one communal house, and they want to impose communism, and they're not happy." Then you look on the other side, and you've got traditional conservatives like Steven Crowder, to use a good example, who touts that, marriage and, they push back against men's communities and men that don't want to get married. And, oh, you're not a real man unless you have a wife and a family. And then in the meantime, their lives are getting absolutely wrecked by marriage. So both sides are wrong about that. And you got one side of the feminists saying, oh, we're empowered and we get to do whatever we want to, and we're stunning and brave, and look at women are just as strong. And then when you point out, well, actually, in many cases, you're making more money, you're out-earning men, you're going to a college at higher rates, the minute that something doesn't go their way, it's patriarchy, even though things are going absolutely smashingly well for them, except when it comes to the LGHDTV community. Now you've got men pretending to be women that are doing better than the actual feminists and the women's rights stuff, which, how ironic is that? But ironically, they brought it in the first place. When I talked about the jab and about, when everybody talked about the jab and everything that was going on, there were people in my comments that were yelling at me, saying, hey, the science is proven and blah, blah, blah. And if you talk back about this, or you talk that it's coming out of China, that you're an evil person. And then here we are 2 years later, and all of a sudden everybody's like, well, after some investigation, we found out, you know what? Looks like this came from, wait for it, China. How did they even get started on saying that, and I do have a couple little blips but mostly this is just a talking head video. How did they even get started on saying that it didn't? And then if you said it was from China, you're an ist or a phobe, because Trump said that it looks like it came over there and they wanted to find a way to attack him. Everything that the media and even the LGHD TV community saying, oh, would you rather have a boy wanting to becoming a girl becoming a boy, or would you rather have them like self-delete themselves? Well, it turns out Norway and Finland have been studying this for a long time because they're even more progressive on some of this stuff in the U.S. Turns out, it doesn't stop them from deleting themselves. But we can't have those conversations. No one can have those conversations. Why? Because everybody wants to lie their way out of reality. But the truth is, reality's still going to happen. The collapse is still going to happen. I mean, at this point, collapse is inevitable. Governments are lying to their people. They're trying to impose the ability to say or not say certain things, take away your freedoms and your rights, bringing in millions of migrants illegally. And it's not, I'm not saying that they're bad people, but you're bringing in young, fighting-aged men, bringing them into a country where they don't have jobs, they have no prospects, they're given room and board and a little bit of money and some cell phones, and they're saying, okay, here you go. And these young men want to do something with their lives. Well, they've decided, I guess I'm going to cause trouble, which most young men do if given the right. And then you've got things like this. Shoplifting in New York City is so bad, supermarkets are locking up and installing anti-theft devices on $6 ice cream. This is the age we live in now. This is just from a week ago. But we're told crime's not bad. Crime's actually dropping in New York City. Again, the lies to cover up reality. Why are we told that? Because stealing ice cream now, or stealing in many cities less than $1,000, is not considered a crime, so they don't report it. Or if they do report it, the police say, well, we're not doing anything about that. So it doesn't get listed as a crime. Well, if nothing is a crime anymore, things can go to hell in a handbasket, but statistically, the crime is getting better, lying their way out of reality. I can't, and the thing is, I literally could list 1,000 different things. These are just things I came across in the last couple days. This is back from 2021. French government furious over the new military letter warning Macron of survival of France. The government of French President Emmanuel Macron reacted with fury on Monday after a group of serving French soldiers published an open letter warning that civil war was brewing over his concessions to Islamism weeks after a similar message from elements in the military rocked the elite. What did they do in the last 2 years about this? Nothing. What's now going on? These young men from Muslim countries who are bored, have no purpose in life, and have very little money. They're just like, you know what? It's game on now. And thus the burning of France. I think I had somewhere, let me see if I have it in another window. I might have had some actual statistics here. Oh, yep, I do. Let me drag this in and pop this in right here. Is that where we were? Yep, that's where we are right now. From Breitbart, thousands of buildings burnt, 5,600 vehicles destroyed, 3,300 arrests in the first week of the French riots. So they're expecting it to go on. And we had the same, remember here, CNN, fiery but mostly peaceful, right? Even though we could see cities and everything burning down. Many of those areas, at least the ones in Minneapolis, I think it was Minneapolis, in Minnesota, or it might have been in Ferguson, Minnesota. I forget. There's so much that's going on. We were told fiery and mostly peaceful. Well, a lot of these places have never recovered. And the areas they were burning were a lot of poor and minority-owned businesses. But we're not allowed to talk about that. We're going to lie our way out of reality. And you can believe the lies. You can believe the news. But at this point, maybe you shouldn't. Because all the weird, people that are like, oh, he's one of those conspiracy people. You know what I'm saying? All those people have turned out to be pretty darn right in about 18 months to 2 years. Why? Because reality is reality, and you can't lie your way out of it. So whether it's statistics on marriage, statistics on divorce, statistics on child support, statistics on women's hypergamy, statistics on dating, on women only wanting the top 10%, or the jab, the poke, the bug, the crime, the insurgence of people from other countries not working out so well because it's like mixing oil and water, the economy, everything. They can lie to you as much as they want, but reality is still going to happen. And now reality is starting to come home. And that's what we're starting to see now. 16 arrested after mob of Minneapolis teens roam streets and shoot fireworks at people. Now, what's really interesting about this and this study, that's not what I wanted to click. And this study here, resumes with they, them pronouns were 8% likely to generate interest. And this story, passport bros are leaving feminist women in their countries behind to pursue relationships with traditional wives abroad because Western women are so bad. And this story here, Boston University students offered therapy after the Supreme Court rulings because they didn't agree with the rulings. So students who are learning about the law need therapy because the highest court in the land came out with a ruling that they disagreed with. Do you see a problem with any of this? I do. And you've got people saying that the Democrats mostly saying, oh, the courts are illegitimate. Well, it's amazing because when they came out with something that the Democrats agreed with, they said, finally, the courts get one right. They show that maybe they actually have some legitimacy. Well, of course they do at this point. What's the point of all this? What's the point of my even doing this video? My point of doing this video is to show you that at this point in time, the government, doesn't matter right, left, center, whoever, the governments are lying to you. Businesses are lying to you. The financial markets are lying to you. Dating coaches and whether it's conservative or left-leaning or whatever, saying that our way is the right way to be happy in life. Just get married and have kids, or just have 4 boyfriends or girlfriends and 2 different baby daddies and get money from the government. That's the real way to be happy. The truth is everybody's really miserable online. And I think the people that are screaming and yelling the loudest online are actually the most unhappy. And that if you really want to understand what's going on in the world, take anyone in a place of power and whatever they tell you, believe the opposite. That's where we are right now. That's where we are right now. And people are continuing to try to lie their way out of reality, and reality is still going to happen. It may happen in a way you like. It may happen in a way you don't like. But more than likely, it's definitely going to happen. And we can run down rabbit holes of why it's all happening, and why they're trying to control the narrative, and why they're trying to get you to do a certain thing in a certain way to give them more or less power, or make you feel or not feel a certain way, into emotionally manipulating to voting a certain way or thinking a certain way. We can go down all those rabbit holes. And we'll probably all have very diverse opinions on that stuff. But before you even walk in the door on those conversations, the first thing you need to understand is whatever you've been told is likely a lie and not the truth. And things are going to get pretty crazy in the next, years to come. I wanted to do this as my first video back after a couple of weeks off because I looked at a lot of these stories, and at a certain point it's like, here's a woman treating another dude badly. There's a story I was going to do. It's about, and I actually have the thumbnail already made, and I decided to not do the video because I'm like, honestly, who cares at this point? That's really how I felt. Let me show you the thumbnail. I even made it, and I said, you know what? I'm not even going to do this story. Here's I was going to do this story. She got mad at a blind guy for staring at her. This is a story about a guy getting kicked out of the gym. Oh, I still have it on me, my bad. This is a story about a guy getting kicked out of the gym for staring at a blind, and he's blind, and a woman got upset he was staring at her. And so she went to the gym management and complained, and they're like, well, you can't stare at women. He's like, here's my legally blind card. I can't see any woman. And they're like, well, you're looking in her direction. He's like, I don't know. I'm just looking out of my face. letting my eyes relax while I'm working out. And they're like, yeah, you got to go. And yeah, it's a ridiculous story. And yeah, it shows the ridiculousness of our society. And yes, it's also kind of a funny story. And you guys probably would have enjoyed it. But when I put these thumbnails together for these stories, and I'm like, I don't want to talk about this stuff. This stuff is nothing burgers. This is silly stuff. Yeah, we can talk about, Bud Light still collapsing. And I'm going to get back to my regular stupid videos that I do, because some of them are funny. But I want you guys going forward to be armed in understanding that you can't just believe what you're told anymore by governments and the media. You got to start doing your own research. You got to look a little bit into it. But your default setting, your default place should be, well, they're lying. That's just, okay, I think they're lying. Let me see if they are, or are they actually telling the truth on this one? That's really where you need to be. And so the more someone's pushing a narrative down your throat and just cramming it, slamming it down your throat, saying, you must believe us, or you're an ist or a phobe or a bad person or whatever, and we should remove you and stop making sure that, the Twitter can't talk about this, and Elon Musk's evil for letting people talk about this, says X government. More than likely, that's a good starting place of saying, okay, I think that's a lie. So forgive me for being offline for a couple weeks, but I needed to clean my soul a little bit. I'd suggest you do the same at a certain point, because the real world is still beautiful. I live near Knoxville, as many of you know. I went down the other day to get some grocery shopping done, and I went into a little convenience shop just to grab a soda because I was parched. And behind the counter was I want to say maybe a 50-year-old white woman, and to her left was like a 50 or 60-year-old black lady and her daughter, who was about, 30, 35. And they were all sitting in stools, like one behind the counter and the other two next to them. And of course, it's not like they sit behind glass, bulletproof glass and all this, because this is Knoxville, where everybody has a gun anyway. So of course, there's a very low crime. But my whole point is, and they were sitting there chatting and having a good time. Oh my, you'd never believe it. Black and white people getting along really well. I mean, I've been told that the South and Republican states are very evil and people don't get along. And I walked in and I said hi, and they said hi, and we had a friendly conversation. And the woman, she said, oh man, I need to get to a barbecue, but I don't know how to barbecue. This is the 60-year-old woman, black woman, saying this. And I said, now you've got to have somebody, and if you don't know how to barbecue, men. I said, all you have to do is get a barbecue, invite a bunch of men over. Someone's walking up to that grill and going to cook it for you, because men like to cook over open fire. You know that about us. And she laughed and she said, yeah, you're right. She said, well, I'll tell you what, she said, do you ever have barbecues? I said, no, but I'm out on my piece of land and I'm getting it all together, and I hope someday to have big barbecues. And she said, well, in the future, swing on by here. I'll give you my number. Invite me over for a barbecue. This is a older 60-year-old black lady asking me to invite, and her daughter says, me too. And then the white woman said, hey, I'll come to a barbecue. So basically they're like, hey, strange white dude that we don't know, strange man that's part of the patriarchy because you're male and white that we don't know. If you ever have a barbecue, come by and invite us. We would love to come to your barbecue. The real world out there is still friendly and beautiful and kind, and we had a good laugh about it. But the problem is that the people that are invoking these laws and trying to get away with their narratives and what they're pushing on you, they're also seeing what's going on the internet. And they're reacting to the people on the internet, and then they're trying to control you via the internet. And the internet right now, while at one point in time we might have thought it would bring enlightenment, is only bringing lies, manipulation, pain, and anger to a lot of people. And I think that's sad. I still think it's a good thing that the internet exists, but you gotta be selective with what you do now, because if you don't, I think you're going to be miserable for it. So I will have more videos coming out here for you shortly. I have mended from my crawling around in the cesspool that is the internet. and enjoying my time off. I talk about the French, what's going on over in France, in like probably about an hour and a half video I did over on Locals, betterbachelor.locals.com. And I did talk about that a few days ago. I think it's a relevant, interesting story, to be sure. So if you want to see more content that I'm not putting out here on YouTube, make sure to become a supporter. It's $5 a month. Go over there, check it out. I think it'd be well worth your time. Great forums. We're sharing all sorts of interesting stuff over there, more so that you can find or that you can't find on social media. All right, guys, I'll leave it at that one. We will see you in the next one. Stay safe, stay sharp, and don't forget to touch the grass.